physically painful, and psychologically torturous death at the hands of the defendant.
She was not good to us. Like, she didn't mean. I just miss my grandbaby.
There is a phone call at the center of this case that lasts only a few seconds. No words, just a 9-year-old girl, alone with a man her family barely knew, reaching for a phone before everything went silent. It would take 6 years to learn what those seconds meant. Before we go any further, if stories like this one matter to you, take a moment to follow the channel so the next one finds you. This is the story of Felecia Williams. To the people who loved her, she was never a headline or a case file. She was Sugar Plum. That was the name her family gave her, and it tells you almost everything about how they saw her. Sweet, bright, the kind of little girl who could light up a room just by walking into it. She was 9 years old, and at 9, a child is still learning the shape of the world. They still believe the grown-ups around them when those grown-ups say, "You are safe with me." They trust easily, because trusting is the only thing they know how to do. That trust is supposed to be guarded by the adults who carry it. The whole case you are about to hear turns on one quiet question. Who gets to decide that a child is safe? On a regular afternoon in Tampa, Florida, Felicia's mother did something millions of parents do without thinking twice. She let her daughter go out for a few hours with someone the family trusted. That someone was a woman named Ebony Wiley. Wiley was close enough to the family to be treated almost like one of their own. She thought of herself as something like a godmother to Felecia. So when she offered to take the little girl out for the day, nobody worried. Like, why would they? But there was something Felicia's family did not know. Wiley had recently met a man named Granville Ritchie, and she was interested in him. She had not known him long. Not enough time to learn who he really was. Not enough time to see how he treated people when it counted. She had met him only a short while before, and on this day she decided to bring a 9-year-old child along with her to go and see him. They did not head straight there. First, they pulled into a drive-thru and picked up some food for Felecia, a small normal kindness, a snack for a kid on an ordinary day. Then they drove to an apartment in a place called Temple Terrace, just outside Tampa. The apartment belonged to Ritchie's mother, and Ritchie was staying there too. And this is where one decision changed everything. After a while, Wiley got ready to step out and run an errand. By the accounts later laid out in court, she was leaving to buy marijuana. She has said she thought about taking Felecia with her, but Ritchie talked her out of it. He told her to leave the little girl behind, with him, and she did. So picture it for a second. A 9-year-old girl, in an apartment she had never set foot in before, with a grown man she had met only hours earlier. Her family had no idea she was even there. The one adult who was supposed to be watching her had just walked out the door, and the clock was running. Wiley was gone for about an hour. When she came back, Felecia was not there. And the explanation waiting for her was simple. Ritchie said he had given the little girl some money to walk to a nearby store for candy, and that she had never come back. It was a small, ordinary-sounding story. A child wandering off for sweets. The kind of thing that almost makes sense for about 10 seconds. But it was the first story in a case that would turn out to be built on lies. And it was the start of a search that would end in the worst way a search can end. When a child goes missing, time stops being something you measure in hours. It becomes the only thing that matters. Every minute that passes is a minute she is still out there somewhere, and a minute closer to never finding her at all. That is the math every parent dreads. And it was the math the people who loved Felecia were now living inside. At first, the search was built around the story they had been handed. A little girl who had walked off to buy candy and lost her way. Police in Temple Terrace opened a missing person case and started doing what they do. They asked questions. Where was she last seen? Who was she with? When exactly did anyone notice she was gone? And right away, the answers did not line up. Because the story Wiley first gave investigators was not the full truth. She told them a version where Felecia had simply wandered off. She did not tell them, at the start, that she had left the little girl alone in that apartment with Ritchie. The accounts of that afternoon did not match. The timeline had holes in it. Make it make sense? Because for investigators it didn't. In a missing child case, that kind of gap is not small. A false start can send searchers to the wrong streets, asking the wrong people, chasing a child who was never on those streets in the first place. Every wrong direction costs time, and time was the one thing Felecia did not have. Then came the discovery that no one searching ever wants to make. Felicia's body was recovered from the water near the Courtney Campbell Causeway, the long stretch of road that runs across the bay between Tampa and Clearwater. She was found the day after she had been left in that apartment. In an instant, everything changed. This was no longer a search for a missing little girl. It was a homicide investigation. And for her family, the hope they had been holding with both hands was gone. The child they had been praying would walk back through the door was never coming home. If this story is holding you, tap like and drop a comment with where you think this is heading. Then stay with me, because this is where the truth starts coming apart.
Now at 11, a tearful goodbye for a 9-year-old girl found dead this weekend.
Tonight, her family is mourning her at a police work to find out who took her life. Good evening, everyone. I'm John Sable.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Serena Fazan. Police now launching a homicide investigation after a Tampa girl's body was pulled from the water off the Courtney Campbell Causeway.
And tonight, friends and family gathered at the very spot where Felecia Williams was found dead to mourn the little girl. Our Chris Trankman is live with more on her loved ones and remembering her tonight.
Well, the police chief here in Temple Terrace said he made a heartfelt promise to the mother of the victim that he will use every resource he can to try and bring the killer to justice. But for friends and family, many of them are frustrated that this case initially was not reported as a missing girl and that the killer is still on the loose. Seeing the place where Felecia Williams' body was brought ashore was too much for some of the little girl's relatives. The child's mother wiped away tears as her friends made a memorial with balloons and flowers.
She was always jolly.
Police say the autopsy confirmed that the child was in fact Williams, but named no suspects and gave no explanation how the girl went from an apartment in Temple Terrace to being found naked 25 miles away in the bay near Clearwater.
It was very emotional. Very emotional. I was there hugging the mom, and we were in there with the family praying, quite frankly.
Police Chief Ken Albano says his department didn't initially send out an Amber Alert because of statements made by the woman who was with the child last, 23-year-old Ebony Wiley.
Because her story just don't add up. It's just something not right about it.
Police agreed and arrested Wiley on charges of giving them false information. Wiley told investigators she brought Williams to an apartment in Doral Oaks, took a shower, and the girl vanished. The neighborhood where Williams lived is shaken up by the loss.
It's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call to all parents. Please, keep an extra eye out on your children, because you have some people out here who have no heart.
Now, police won't say whether this was a sex crime or how the girl was killed. Meanwhile, they say that the statements made by Ebony Wiley did send them in the wrong direction. They were actually going door to door asking people if they had seen the little girl when, in fact, she had already been taken over to Clearwater. Meanwhile, they did say one of the officers did go into the neighborhood handing out flyers showing a possible suspect. They said that that was not authorized. They told that officer not to do that, and they are not giving out any details on a possible suspect this evening. We're live in Temple Terrace. Chris Trankman, ABC Action News.
With Felecia gone, the pressure on that first story became too heavy to carry. Investigators kept circling back to the same problem. The story kept shifting, and the more they pressed, the more it gave way. Eventually, Wiley
and
admitted that
arrested
she had
Wiley on
not told the
charges of giving
truth.
them false information.
She acknowledged that
Wiley-
she had left Felecia alone with Ritchie that day. That single admission turned the whole case. Investigators were no longer looking at a child who had wandered off. They were looking hard at the man who had been alone with her. And once they focused on him, the evidence began to speak. Remember that phone call from the very start of this story? Investigators found that a brief call to 911 had been placed from Ritchie's phone during the window when Felecia was alone with him. It lasted only seconds. No clear voice, no full message. But prosecutors would later say that call was made by Felecia herself. A 9-year-old, in trouble, reaching for the one number every child is taught to call. There was more. Records from Ritchie's cell phone showed it moving west across Tampa the night Felecia vanished, heading toward the same area where her body was later found. And when investigators examined his car, they found leaves and sand that matched the scene by the water. Piece by piece, the physical evidence was laying down a path that ran from that apartment across the city to the edge of the bay. The picture investigators put together was this. After Wiley was dropped back in Tampa that night, Ritchie returned to the apartment, placed Felicia's body in a suitcase, and drove it across the county to the causeway, where he let it slip into the water. Days later, Ritchie was taken into custody. He was first picked up on an unrelated charge, but it would not be long before his name sat at the very center of Felicia's case. Wiley, too, would answer to the law, charged with lying to investigators during the search for a missing child. The man the family barely knew had a name now. The lies were coming undone. And the question that had haunted everyone since that afternoon, what really happened to Sugar Plum in the hour she was left alone, was finally heading toward the one place it could be answered. A courtroom. Years passed before the case reached that courtroom. The charges against Ritchie were as serious as they come. First-degree murder, sexual battery of a child, and aggravated child abuse. The turning point was Wiley herself. She took the stand and told the truth she had once buried, that she had left Felecia alone with him and that she had lied to police. The jury weighed the evidence, including that brief 911 call, and found Ritchie guilty on every count. Then they faced one more decision, life or death. All 12 agreed on death. A judge later imposed that sentence. But a sentencing is never only about the person being sentenced. It is also about the people left behind. And when Felicia's family rose to speak, the room heard the full weight of what had been taken. Her mother stood before the court dressed in black. She said she had counted the days, 2,310 of them, waiting for this moment. She spoke as a wounded mother, and she did not hide her anger. She wanted the man who killed her daughter to face the harshest end the law allowed. It was the voice of a mother who had lost the center of her world. And then her father did something almost no one saw coming.
I'm not like everybody else, bro. I ain't got no ill will against you. That same Bible that you play with, bro, you about to yourself, you get on your knees and you pray. Cause the journey you got ahead of you gonna need God. I forgive you. Ain't no anger towards you, bro.
He turned toward the man convicted of killing his little girl. He said that no one on the other side had ever asked him for forgiveness, but that he was giving it anyway. And to the man who had taken his daughter, he said 3 words. I love you. Anger and forgiveness, in the same room, at the same time. Both of them real. That is what grief can look like. It does not come in one shape, and it does not follow one rule. There was still the question of Ebony Wiley, the woman who had been trusted with Felecia, the one who left her in that apartment, then told that first false story. Wiley was never charged with the murder. Prosecutors said there was no evidence she knew what was coming, or that she took any part in the killing. In their telling, she had lied about a child she believed had run away. But she had still lied during the search for a missing girl, and in time she pleaded guilty to giving false information to law enforcement. Her deal carried a short jail term and a stretch of probation. For Felicia's family, that did not feel like enough. To them, Wiley was the adult who was supposed to keep their child safe, and the price for her part landed nowhere near the size of their loss. Her father would later push for her to answer for more. And this is the question the case leaves on the table. What is justice when one person's choice helps open the door to a tragedy, but the law does not hold them responsible for the tragedy itself? The system has its categories: murder, false statements, probation. A grieving family is left with something no category can measure: an empty chair where a little girl used to sit. As for Ritchie, the case did not close the day he was sentenced. Years later, the state's highest court reviewed his conviction and his death sentence and let them stand. Since then, his appeals have continued, his lawyers still fighting for a new hearing. To this day, he remains on death row, convicted of taking Felicia's life.
Sentenced to death. Today, a judge upheld a death sentence against Granville Ritchie. He's convicted of raping and murdering a 9-year-old girl and then dumping her body off the Howard Franklin Bridge 6 years ago. ABC Action News reporter Isabel Rosales was at the court today during a very emotional hearing.
It was absolutely an emotional day for the family of Felecia Williams. Even the judge cried. But perhaps the most stunning moment came from the little girl's father and his calm words to the man who took his world. Judge Michelle Cisco handing down the state's ultimate punishment: death.
May God have mercy on your soul, Mr. Ritchie.
One by one, the victim's family described the sleepless nights Granville Ritchie caused them by raping and murdering 9-year-old Felecia Williams. Her grandmother.
I just miss my grandbaby.
Her sister.
She meant the world to us, and he discarded her like she was nothing.
Her mother.
I've waited 2,310 days for this day to come.
Felecia Demerson says she wore black to, quote, bury Ritchie today.
The only thing I regret today is that I cannot ask for his fate. And that would be for him to be hung, for him to feel what my daughter felt.
Even the judge was unable to hold back her own tears.
My heart breaks for you as a mother. Absolutely breaks for you as a mother.
But one of the most remarkable moments came from the victim's father.
I forgive you, bro. That's how strong my God is. I can come in and smile at you today with no harm or ill will towards you. You my brother. You made a mistake. But you got time. You got time to get right with God, bro.
Williams says Ritchie must answer to a higher authority.
Get on your knees and you pray. Because the journey you got ahead of you gonna need God.
But the journey toward justice isn't over. Ritchie will likely spend years in death row before his execution and after any and all appeals have been exhausted. In Tampa, Isabel Rosales, ABC Action News.
If this story leaves you with anything, let it be this. Trust is not something to hand over lightly, especially when a child's safety is on the line. Being friendly is not the same as being safe. And if a child ever goes missing, the truth has to come first, even when that truth is hard to say, because when a child is in danger, nothing else comes close. Not pride, not fear, not protecting yourself. When the headlines fade, let the last word not be about the man who did this, or the lies, or the courtroom. Let it be about her. A 9-year-old with a sweet nickname and a family who loved her. A family that sat through every painful hearing and waited years for an answer. She was here long before she was a case. Her name was Felecia Williams. They called her Sugar Plum. And that is how she deserves to be remembered. Thank you for staying with this one all the way through. If Felicia's story moved you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so the next story finds you the moment it goes up. If you want another case told with this same care, there is one waiting for you on your screen right now. And before you go, tell me this in the comments. If you had been in that family's place, what would it take for you to trust someone with your own child? And where do you draw that line? I would like to hear how you see it. Until the next story, take care of one another, watch who you trust, and keep these names alive long after the world moves on.